What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Core Podcast covering all things Apple TV. My name is Jim, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Luke and Paul. And today we complete, for now and maybe for a while, our coverage of Vince Gilligan's Pluribus. Today we are covering Season 1, Episode 9, titled La Chica o El Mundo. This is the finale, guys. We made it 8 weeks, I guess, technically, because we got the first 2 episodes at once. But first of all, I said we completed and maybe for a while this season. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because we are an Apple TV podcast and we have all the Apple TV news. And there are some quotes out there from Vince Gilligan. He was asked how long it will be until the next season of Pluribus. And he said, quote, longer than I would care for it to be. And then he actually gave a deep sigh. And he said, because the show takes a lot of time to get precisely calibrated. And he said, it's going to be a while. Quote.
Boo. What needs to be precisely calculated? That's crazy to me. If Game of Thrones can rip a season every year, that needs to be calculated. I don't know what Pluribus is behind the scenes looks like, but to me, I feel like they just need the Albuquerque location and they're good to go.
I think it's more so about the writing. In this same article from The Ringer, he said that when it comes to Pluribus, they have technically a map. We talked about this in the very beginning of the season when we were previewing the season. There's a roadmap for Pluribus. He knows generally how he's going to end it. For Breaking Bad and even Better Call Saul, a lesser amount because obviously it's a prequel. But for Breaking Bad, he was writing as he went. He said that there were situations where they would write ridiculous finales, and I don't want to say it just in case nobody's seen it. There would be certain things that they would write, and they would have no idea how they're going to pay it off. And then they would just have to start writing for the next season. So he said it's not exactly the same with Pluribus, but it's kind of like that. And he said he'll change whatever he needs if he needs to, depending on how the writing goes. And to be honest, he even said that the finale was changed because of a note from Apple TV, which we will get to. And when I say the finale, I mean literally the final scene. But guys, let's just start off. Luke, Paul, I don't know. We want to do a rock, paper, scissors or what? Who's going to start? What do you do? Go.
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'll hop in. I enjoyed it. I think a lot of people are on the same page. It was like a really nice, refreshing story, something you've never really heard of before. We've heard of hive minds, but doing the whole actual how would you survive in a world where hive minds have taken over was so fun. It pulled out a bunch of emotion. I've said that of every episode. The show makes you feel, but just how it started and where it left us definitely feel like Chris Griffin and like where's the chase and how do I cut to it. And I did love it, and I think the ride is the fun part of the show, not like the big mystery of it. We've harped on that all season long, so I am really really enjoying it. I am altering expectations for what's to come, but that being said, I still love Carol as a character. I think she's super, super complicated. And we'll touch on, some of the choices she made for the finale here. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to recommend this show to people and say it was, great Apple TV.
I'm similar for most of the things you said. Like looking at IMDb, which is nice that we're recording this later due to the Christmas holiday because we actually have that information. Normally we record right away. You can see where it landed with the general public. And this finale is sitting at an 8.5 out of 10, which is the highest of the season outside of the pilot, which was a 9. So nothing has really even come close to the first 2 episodes and then the finale in terms of the ratings. And I agree with that. I think this was the best episode in a long time. And I said that about last episode, but I don't think last episode, meaning episode 8, was in the same ballpark as the first 2, whereas this one was a little bit closer. So it was ending on a relatively high note for how this season went, but I don't know how excited I am to wait the 2 years. Like, even when this comes back, I mean, the worst thing I'll say about the show is that I don't know how excited I'm going to be to rewatch the show. Maybe I'll read 4-paragraph summary and have the whole gist of season 1, because that's pretty much like all it would take to re-catch back up. But I am excited for more content. I'm thinking that Paraguay Manusos is the best part of the story. And when maybe not the best part, but he's the most refreshing new part of the story. And we're going to have way more of him in season 2. Like, Carol and him are straight up Marvel Avengers teaming up all things going forward now, right? Like that's
Yeah.
something I'm very much looking forward to. Carol is back to how we expected her to react with the hive mind, where she's definitely anti them. She seemed to have sent Zosha away. So I like that mindset on her where she wants to save the world again. So the future's looking bright. It does suck that there's probably no way it's happening until like the end of 2027 based on the quotes you were given there. But yeah, I definitely thought going into before I even saw episode 1 or 2, I was going to walk away from the season liking it more than I do. But I'm happy we did this as a podcast. It made it more interesting, and our conversations, like even off like just texting and everything, have been fun. The Discord has been amazing. Everybody in our Discord loves it. I know that's might be controversial in the Reddit where people are split, but it's good to see that. Like our Discord might like it more than our podcast, which is kind of funny because it's not usually that case. We're usually trying to convince people of our opinions and everything, but I actually get convinced by some of their commentary. So that's nice to see. All in all, I'll save a rating, maybe out of 10. We can just do that to sign off. And my rating will probably change with this conversation, but it was solid. I'll leave it at that. It wasn't my favorite Apple TV show of all time. It definitely doesn't touch Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad in terms of quality, but it was a good show. And I love Apple swinging for the fences with a big writer like Vince Gilligan.
Yeah, so Vince Gilligan, he did what he does, right? He did what he does, and he's the best at it, pretty much. Everything that he wrote character-wise was phenomenal this season. The character arcs, and when I say character arcs, I mean mostly emotionally, especially with Carol, was phenomenal, right? Plot-wise, we'll get into it, right? As we go through this finale, we'll get into that. Now, I'm going to be careful with how I say what I'm about to say because I think from the three of us, I'm the highest on it throughout the
Mm-hmm.
season. I love Vince Gilligan, but the one thing
Mm-hmm.
I want to say here is that a lot of people on Reddit, a lot of people online are saying you need to watch this through a certain lens. And that's very, very true. And we should have done that from the very beginning. Vince Gilligan got us with the pilot. He
Mm-hmm.
told us, he let us know. He said, Core Podcast, he said, this isn't going to be some crazy show where there's plot twists left and right and blah, 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 blah. You're going to be watching something that is very character driven, very straightforward. You find out everything you need to know from our boy Davis Taffler, and don't expect something to shock you. Please don't need that to continue watching my television show. And because we watched the pilot, I think a lot of us were so excited for a certain way because it seemed like he said one thing and then he showed us another thing. But then as the season went on, we understood what we were watching. And as we started to understand what lens we were watching through, this is going to be a high end, character driven type of television show. Yes, it's an apocalypse. It's a different type of apocalypse, but really it's about Carol. It's about Paraguay, Manusos, and the conversations, the interactions, and the deeper meanings of what's happening with these characters, not necessarily what are we going to do next with these characters, right? With that being said, again, masterclass in exactly what he was trying to do. Now, plot wise, Luke, what you were saying about how you will go into season 2, meaning you don't necessarily need to watch season 1 again. Plot wise, I fully agree because
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about this really quickly. We learned 3 major things in this finale. Number 1 is that the hive mind is fully manipulating Carol. Check. We knew that as a podcast and as most viewers knew that
Mm-hmm.
that was happening. Number 2, the stem cells from the eggs. I'm not saying everybody knew that, but many people theorized that. Check, right? And then number 3 is the radio frequency reveal. Check. We knew all these things. We
Mm-hmm.
theorized all these things. We didn't learn anything new as podcasters or viewers who fine tooth comb a TV show. Now, that's not against Vince Gilligan because he literally said, this is what you're watching. But a lot of people, and I think I'm one of them, would have liked you to give me something to say, Jesus, I'm ready for season 2. The
Yeah.
atom bomb thing at the end of the episode was kind of funny. I'm going to give that the humor side of things. And also, you want to talk about what it means. It's also saying something about where Carol's at the end of the season. But it didn't make me go, boom, holy, I got to watch season 2. Now, again, devil's advocate here. Just remember, everybody, Breaking Bad, season 1, we don't meet Saul Goodman, Gus Fring, Mike, any of these people until season 2 and further. Breaking Bad season 1 is very, very similar to how this is playing out. Everyone knows that's listening to this podcast that Breaking Bad is my favorite show of all time. So I loved what I saw this show in this season, but I would have liked some kind of reveal to make me say, like, damn, let's go.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And you made a really good point about like the humor aspect of it. And a lot of the show, I feel like, was pushing towards the humor, which I loved. I mean, I was cracking up multiple times every episode, but I feel like they put the humor there in almost anticlimactic situations, which we talked about, which isn't a bad thing, right? Like it's almost teasing and making fun of the mystery box show. But, we're waiting all season for like Manusos and Carol to meet, and it almost means nothing, right? It almost doesn't pay off in the beginning. Obviously, it worked out towards a storyline, but it wasn't an exciting initial interaction that, we're kind of hoping for. Same thing with like the milk carton. Again, it's the point of this could be a mystery for another show, but it's kind of a joke for us. It's Kumba just being like, oh, like, are you worried about them eating people? So I don't mind them subverting expectations, but it did feel like we were leading to important scenes that almost kind of felt like a slap in the face, but I don't know how to exactly word it without sounding rude, but like I enjoyed what happened, but after it happened multiple times of, waiting for a scene and it not paying off, it's kind of like, all right, well, then what am I supposed to look forward to at this point? So,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's plot versus character driven storylines, right? We're guessing and we know what the plot is. And that's another perfect example, Paul, where we were theorizing and talking. What could this drink be? What are they putting? What are they doing? What's the weird thing? What's the crazy thing that Carol is shocked at? Is it bodies? Vince Gilligan says, yeah, it's freaking bodies, dude. I don't care. That's not part of the story. It's not the part that really matters, right? To your point, Paul, Carol and Manusos meet. There's a lot there between them, but plot wise, it was like they meet, they're antagonistic a little bit. Carol sides with the hive mind and Zosha. And then finally, Carol starts to realize and does realize, oh, I got to go back to Manusos. I was wrong. They
Mm-hmm.
got me. They manipulated me. And now here's the season ending with them Avengers assembling, which is, again, what we guess would happen. So the beauty in it is how it happens and them talking to each other and interacting and what's going on in Carol's mind and how she's feeling and blah, blah, blah. And we are, of course, going to talk about that. And we're not going to be negative about that at all. It's just seems like this is like the prologue to where a show could blow up big time. And now we're going to have to wait 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. The momentum, they're going to have to recapture it. If they truly believe in this product, they'll market it the right way when it comes to season 2. And we'll just have to put trust in Vince Gilligan. I'm not afraid to do that. So I think let's jump into it and we can talk about a little bit more of the opinions as we're working our way through the plot. And just to set the scene, let's talk about the cold opening, which is 11 days into the future of where we actually have our Carol storyline take place. And we see a flash to one of the characters we met earlier in the season, which is one of the other 12 survivors, Kusimayu, I think is her name. Yep. And it's just her with her people living their daily life of whatever Pluribus is to her as she's waiting to be turned. Because if you remember, she's the character that wanted to be turned with all of the rest of her people. It's probably one of the more talked about things I saw was this cold opening, and It was good. Like not even a lot of words were exchanged. Like that's the whole point. She's the only person there. Everybody else is manipulating her. And I think that was the genius of this scene, which is after they turn her, which I think is actually a little quicker than the timeline we were given, but that's its own conversation of when we could expect them to use the stem cells to fix the people that didn't join that weren't in the original joining. But the fact that they are doing like the songs and keeping up with the village and just trying to preserve her lifestyle, as soon as they turn her, words are gone. They snuff out the fire, they release the animals, they move on. That's
Yes.
the evil that you're
That's
supposed to
the
be
horror.
seeing with the hive mind. Yes, where
Yes.
everything that they're doing is fake, and we've known that. That's not even a surprise. Just like everything else, like it's not a twist. It's just that's the first time we've seen it like that. So I thought it was a pretty jarring opening. But I guess my question to you guys is, what is the significance of the 11 days into the future time jump to just immediately go back 11 days? Is that just to show that it's the stem cell treatment is right around the corner and we're like on a timer?
I think it was about them showing us that it needs to take some time. Like you said, there is a timetable, and we were kind of given a timetable, and it may have been quicker than we
Mhm.
thought. But I think it was just jumping into the future enough so that it's noticeable that it took them time for when she offered it, because we do know she would have been the first one immediately to offer it based on what she said when we actually met the character earlier in the season. And, it just so happened, I guess that's the 11 days, the 71 days that they chose. That's how they wanted the timetable to work. And then they flashed right back to where Carol and Manusos were. So I took it as it just takes some time to get it done. And they just wanted to show us that. Whether it was the timetable we assumed or not, I guess it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And another interesting part there was Kusumaya releasing the animals right as she's turned and leaves with every of the others, because it seems like they want to like save the animals, but she was almost condemning this goat to death, it felt like, by just abandoning them there. And I don't know if that was the point or they're just trying to tug at your heartstrings with the little baby goat bleats, because they were definitely tugging at mine.
Apple TV loves it, dude.
uh
Those goats.
yeah.
Yeah, for real. They must have a farm guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, it's like I didn't know what to take from that scene, because they were setting them free, but it almost felt like they were just going to die in the wild because they needed to be taken care of. So it's weird.
Dude, it's the horror. It is literally the horror, and I think this was perfectly done. And this is the kind of stuff where I know we just spent 15 minutes talking about the plot stuff and how we weren't too happy with how it moved, but this is what you're watching, and you're like, damn, this is phenomenal. Because again, you're watching Kusamayo be a little nervous, but they're manipulating the hell out of her. They're making it so that it seems like she's in her village. All of her customs are still being done. They're acting like mother figures to her. And soon as they change her, she lays down, she has the change. Like Luke said, they get up, they go away, they start packing up and walking away. They let the goats out. And we saw Kusamaya, the last thing that she's doing before she's turned is sitting with the goat and petting it and loving it. And then immediately after she's turned, that goat chases after her, cute as hell,
Mhm.
saying, "Come back, homie. Where are you going?" And she doesn't even turn to look at it. She's obviously not the same person. She's now the hive mind, and the hive mind may say that they love the animals, but Kusamayu loves that goat. The last thing she wanted to do was pet the goat before she changed, and she
Mhm.
walks out stone faced on her BFF. This is where it's showing us what Carol finally sees for real. I mean, she's seen it, obviously, but they manipulated her into not seeing it for a little bit, and then now she's seeing it again at the end of this episode.
Mhm. And my final comment for the opening is sort of unrelated to the specific scene, but the broader implications of one of my biggest surprises of Pluribus as a show is the lack of screen time for the other survivors. Like we got Manusus a little bit more recently, but even that, like screen time hasn't been off the chart. Kumba had his moment. There's probably 5 or 6 others that we haven't even seen yet. I'm just shocked that they haven't been brought into the story in a more meaningful way. Like this actor is probably gone from the show now that she's in the hive mind, because what would she serve as a purpose going forward in
Right.
season 2 or 3? Like we should get Kumba again and some of the other ones, but like, are we gonna get Locksmith? Like, we got her on the phone call of like cursing out Carol, but like, are we gonna get some of the other? I can't remember off the top of my name because that's how little screen time they've gotten characters earlier in the season, or is it just not the point?
I agree with you. I think it is something where once the seasons start to become season 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it's going to be, we're going to have to start to get more of these characters. Vince
Mhm.
Gilligan may be laughing at me for saying that, because he might just say, "Hey, we're focusing on Manusus and Carol, and that's it." But I feel like they exist for a reason. I mean, they may start getting picked off one by one, and that may be the story by the hive
Mhm.
mind, right? But we'll have to see. But I agree. I'm a little surprised that we haven't gotten more of them too.
Yeah. Just a thought, but we can move on.
All right, so jumping back to around 60 days here in the quote unquote present time, we got Carol and Zosa just kind of watching Manusos drive in the ambulance, and Carol's asking some questions, and Zosha doesn't really have all the answers for her because she reveals, he's not talking to any of us. We don't really know what he wants, but he's coming all the way from Paraguay. So Carol's like, at least I got to give him a shot if he made this entire trip, and then I'll send him packing. Is pretty much like her mindset. It's almost exactly like when she went to go visit Kumba in Vegas. Nobody really wanted her there, but Kumba was just being nice and kind of reaching out. This is what it feels like. Carol is just giving this guy a shot, but it goes poorly so quickly. Manusos was rehearsing that line, which he nails
Hmm.
when Carol comes out,
He does.
but the whole honking of the ambulance to get her outside and the immediate standoff between let's talk in the house versus let's talk in the ambulance, it got so out of hand so quick. And then Carol pulling out the phone to translate, that just triggered him to toss in the sewer. And Carol's like, I don't know why I'm entertaining this guy in the first place. I'm going back inside. So
Mhm.
not a great start.
Yeah, it kind of
And
went how I thought it was going to go. Maybe even a little less hostile than I thought, but that's just because Zosha left the scene. She said, "We got to get out of here. Like, we can't be around because he will have his negative emotions and probably risk making everybody see." So it was just a good scene to set the tone of their relationship for the whole episode.
let's talk about what you were bringing up, Paul, with their conversation before Manuso shows up. They're watching over him with the whatever you want to call it, the
Satellite.
yeah, the satellite. Um they see him coming, and we've known this for a long time, but this is pretty much fully confirmed now in this episode that the hive mind slash Zosha are choosing their words at all times very, very carefully. And when she, as Zosha, is sitting there talking to Carol, Carol's asking, what's his deal? What should I expect? And she says, is he dangerous? And Zosha kind of is stuttering. And then she says, he's not going to be dangerous to you. Right. But when she says it, she's very nervous when she says it. And of course, that could be the hive mind having to tell the truth because they know he is dangerous with his machete and he could do whatever. But also, I do think it's again manipulating Carol in a way where Carol took him as hostile pretty quickly, right? And it started off with the hostility, and they want that. They don't want them to be a tag team. And I agree, it was hostile like we expected. And Manusos, he nailed the line. He was practicing it. But Carol here, before she sees Manusos, I think she was choosing her words carefully too, and not in the best way. This episode showed that they got her even more so than we thought, right? With her loneliness. We saw last episode she was still writing on her whiteboard. She was still working it. She was trying to figure it out. How's she going to stop this? How's she going to fix the world? But this episode, you can see even more so that the manipulation worked. And
Yeah.
Carol cares for Zosha. And obviously, a big moment is when Zosha tells Carol later that Zosha and the hive mind love Manusos the same amount they love Carol, which stabs her right in the heart, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
But Carol is, to me, when she's like, oh, I'll just entertain him and I'll throw him out and send him on his way. The old Carol would have been like, Zosha, get the hell out of here. Me and Manusa's got some stuff to talk about. I feel like this Carol understood that it was a good thing that she was going to talk to Manusos because he's finally the one person who wants to go against the hive mind like her. But at the same time, she didn't want to upset the hive mind, and she wanted to sugarcoat how she was going to talk to Manusos and how she was talking to them so that they didn't see her as antagonistic towards them.
Mm. And I didn't even realize that what you pointed out, that the hive mind was choosing their words and putting that hesitancy into Carol's interactions with Paraguay. I'm sorry, Paraguay, just to make it that much more difficult to actually get on the same page and conversate. So very smart. I like that. And she was immediately hesitant, saying like, not even approaching him, saying, "Come into my house," all that other stuff. And eventually, when the phone gets tossed in the sewer, she's like, "I'm out of here." which he receives and is like, all right, fine, we won't talk in the ambulance or the house. How about we talk in the field? I just need an umbrella. And that brings it to the next conversation scene, which they got a little bit more on the same page here. They're at least like not fighting the whole time, and made some like good points. But one of the big things that I think they immediately conflicted on was Menuso saying, why would they let two humans come together to destroy them? And Carol's like, destroy? I never said destroy. And this is immediately going into the change and how much the others have got to Carol. Like you were saying, Jimmy, if this was a few weeks ago, she would have been like, hell yeah, like let's destroy these fuckers or put the world right. But now she's like, I can't destroy them. I'm, in love with
In love.
a portion of them.
I'm curious.
Yeah. So it's great. I loved it.
I want to devil's advocate you a little bit, Paul. I fully agree with you. She kind of surprised me this episode with how much she got by the hive mind and how against Menuso she really was to start. But we do want to bring up the fact that I don't think she would be down with destroying them, just because we do know that she was very upset whenever she hurt somebody when the hive started seizing and people died, and she was very upset about that. I think that will be the big clash between Menusos and Carol, because Menuso says straight up, yo, I would rather these people be dead than be the hive mind. Like back in the day before she got by the hive mind, I think she would have said maybe that is better, and she would have definitely been like, let's discuss. But now that she's in love with Zosha and she was lonely for so long in those 40 days or however many days it was, now she's like, destroy? No, these are good people. They're just not the way we want them to be. We need to fix them. We don't need to destroy them. And then even there, we talked about this. The fix part of it was going to be a conflicting issue now with Carol, because does she want to fix Zosha at this moment because she loves her? That's where the episode goes, and eventually we get to the point where she's like, all right, they got me.
That's just right back to the tagline of the show of Carol being the most miserable person in the world, tries to save the world from happiness. But that's the key part, is save the world, not free them. Like if Menusos was the main character, it would have been a different tagline, right?
Right.
So that's the important distinction there. But yeah, I agree.
And I think, like you were saying, Jimmy, a big conversation they need to have and come to terms on is, are these people that are infected, are they still humans or are they not? Because Carol's under the assumption that they are still humans now, and Menusos is saying they're not. They steal people's souls. Like if we can't fix them, we should get rid of them, which, I think his mindset there kind of changes more towards the end of the episode, because he's leaning more towards, I think we can fix them. We don't have to destroy them.
Right.
We'll get there when we get there. But another part that he brings up is like, well, you said they abandoned you for 40 days. Why'd they come back? And Carol's like,
yeah,
no say. Like, I don't know. Like, what are you talking about? That's a stupid question. This is stupid. I'm going back inside. So you can just see her just complete attitude shift from when she was making the videos and saying, like, we need to figure out what these aliens are doing to, they're human now. They're human, and this is a stupid conversation. I want to go back inside. So,
and this is where I want to bring up the fact that plot-wise, plot-driven type of show, maybe a lot didn't happen in this episode in that way, and maybe even the last couple episodes, if you want to talk about some people saying, there was a lull plot-wise. But this is the beauty of it right here. The exact kind of conversations we're having about the changes in Carol. And I want to make sure we reiterate, Carol's a freaking badass, right? When she's throwing down Menusos, she don't give a shit. She's like, all right, dude, first of all, machete in the ambulance. And then he starts going back and forth. I'm not going in your ambulance. You're coming in the house. Oh, you're going to take my phone. You're going to fight with me about it. All right, dude, whatever. I don't care. Like, she's not taking any shit from anybody. And also, I do want to quickly bring back up their conversation under the umbrella, where Menusos is saying they're reading our lips, they're spying on us. And Carol, who, again, episodes ago would have been like, damn, yeah, man, Jesus, why am I not thinking of that? You're fully correct, was defending them again. And when Manusos is saying they're not human, they're sucking souls, they're not actual people, we should destroy them if we can't bring them back. Carol is saying, bro, they wouldn't harm an ant. They can't even pick an apple from a tree. They don't want to hurt anybody. And then Manusis is like, bro, I said bro a lot this episode. Everybody drink if I say bro. Menusa says they're literally having an ant and a human. They're taking them both equally. Obviously, I'm butchering the quote, but there's something wrong with that. And past Carol would have fully agreed with that. But right now, she's not agreeing with that. And that's the beauty of how the hive mind has manipulated her throughout this entire thing. And funnily enough, we're going to get there in a second. Manusos is living the dream when the hive mind put him in timeout. And I don't know that he would care ever that he got stuck by himself because he was already doing that before. But the one thing that I will say that Carol made a good point about is Manusos is so against the hive mind. He wants to destroy them. He wants to fix them. In any means necessary, he's going to fix this problem. He doesn't care if it means destroy the world. He doesn't care if it means fix them. He would rather fix them, but he doesn't believe that if he can't fix them, they should be living, right? And she's like, dude, if you think that this is so important, why haven't you talked to them and got information? Do you even know anything about them? You're sitting there secluding yourself. You haven't even tried to gather information. And Luke, I know you were saying too at the very beginning of this show when we first meet the hive mind and start to understand who the hive mind are, you were like, I would literally just sit there for 12 hours straight and ask every single
Yeah.
question that I could think of in the world. And that is a good point that Carol made. It's funny because it's a very like you're sitting on the fence on whose side you are during the debate because I'm not sure that we would want to destroy them, but also we agree that he should have got more information. So they're both making good points. And that leads us to Manusos basically saying, all right, well, then let me get some information.
Yeah, it totally backfires, and it's funny because it's almost hypocritical of Carol because when they were all on Air Force One, they're like, "What? You didn't ask them this basic question?" And
Yes.
now she's almost taking the reverse side. Oh, you didn't talk to them, as if Kumba wasn't instilling that message in her, and now she's doing the same to him. And he takes the advice right away in the most objective, non-emotional way possible where he's like, okay, let's do it. And she ends up running into him the next night or that night talking to Zosha after having spilled every single part of episodes 1 through 8. So he basically got to speed run the season and now he's all caught up. And it's like, what the hell do we do here? Because that's freaking Carol out. Because I'm sure the first thing in her mind is, which she never actually says out loud, is, did you tell him we hooked up? Because she doesn't
Yeah.
want him to be like, okay, you're just completely hive curious now to the point where I can't trust you. Thankfully, it didn't get to that because they talked around it and then other things happened, like the seizing and the radio frequency waves took precedent as the other scenes happened. But yeah, that was almost such a big backfiring directly to Carol for trying to just push Manusos in one way.
It's a funny scene leading in when Manusos is looking for the mic and he snaps at Carol to like
Yeah.
bring him the phone, and she's like, "Nah, like I don't speak
I don't
snap."
speak snap.
And then later on, when she kicks him out, she snaps at him and like points at the door. So I thought that was good. But the everything with this motion sensor, I feel like would have been fine if they just didn't mention the eggs again. Because as soon as they mentioned the eggs, that was basically like subtitles. This is going to be the big plot twist later on. Because if they
Yeah.
just said, Helen was worried about your drinking habits, and so she was watching and seeing how much you were opening the liquor
Yeah,
cap.
yeah.
I think that would have been fine. But as soon as they were like, oh, it was about your eggs again, it was like, okay, well, you're trying to slip it into a conversation twice now. It seems kind of obvious with everything going on. And maybe that was just us being podcasters, and Jimmy, you're so smart. We hang on to every word you say. But I was just like, all right, confirmation. Like that's going to be the important information at the end.
Well, make sure we give our Discord the props they deserve too, because they were all talking about it as well. And during that time, I don't think I was watching the Discord because I wanted to make sure. I believe we had already watched. I didn't want to say anything until, they all watched as well. But did you guys watch the trailer or the previously on going into this episode, or did you skip it? I can't remember if I
No,
did or not.
I
But
think I skipped it.
I'm pretty sure I did watch it actually, and I will say The only props I'll give Vince Gilligan is that he didn't decide to put it on the previously on
Yeah.
like so many other freaking shows do.
Mm-hmm.
Previously on, it'll be like the entire scene of the eggs where we're like, okay, here it comes, right? And Paul, no, I fully agree with you. They could have got us way better if they didn't do that, because it could have easily been talked about where Carol said, yeah, Helen didn't like my drinking, because we already know that.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
We fully know that. But I will say the direction from Vince Gilligan and the camera angles of this, I was so impressed, just because, it has Manussos looking in, and my eyes went right to it. And I got the, oh shit, because I thought it was going to be them spying,
Yeah.
but it
Mm-hmm.
ended up being something different. But still, the way that it like popped out on the screen in the right way in the corner, it made me very like, oh shit,
Mhm.
nice. And it ended up being something different. And again, we just keep waiting for a blatant
Yeah.
thing that is going to make the hive mind be the antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting blatant enough in this finale, but it still hasn't been as blatant as, hey, here's a tracker, or hey, here's Manusso's bleeding in the beginning of the last episode because they actually did take his stem cells without telling him, things like that. This is where it actually is important, because Carol calls Zero, she calls Zosha, and Paraguay Manussos doesn't know that this exists for him or for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, who'd you talk to? And she said, I talked to them.
And I think one small important scene too, as they were walking in from the umbrella conversation into the house, Manuso sees the Helen gravestone in the backyard,
Right.
and that's why he also sees the phone call. And when Carol hangs up, he's like, "Who are you talking to?" And she's just like, "Oh, the others. I always talk to the others." And he's got those two bits of information. When he finally calls and is like, "I want to speak with Zosha," later on, I'm sure he's able to put together like, all right, Carol's being hesitant because she
Oh,
has
yeah.
feelings for Zosha. So
Mm-hmm.
it all worked out perfectly to him calling and being like, I need to talk to Zosha.
Yeah, and I kind of already described what happens when he does talk to Zosha, but as soon as Carol comes in and steals her back, yeah, he jumps right back on, send another, which I thought was really
Yeah.
badass. He's just like,
Yeah.
bring another one in here. Let me get some
Yeah.
more answers. Like I've been saying, and Jimmy, you're right. That's me. I would have done the same
Yeah.
thing.
21 questions times infinity until we get every answer we need. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, Carol takes Zosha back, and then she says, "Ugh, what'd you do? What'd you tell him?" And she says, like, if he asks, we will tell. But again, they admitted, and when I say they, it's Zosha. She said, we didn't give anything that wasn't specifically asked. It basically, she said, I manipulated the conversation in a way where, yes, if he asks us, we're going to tell him, but I tried not to. And if I didn't have to, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's just another thing. And we've had that throughout this season as well. But that's just another check for the manipulation tactics from the hive mind.
Let's just do it because we're talking around it, like the conversation between Carol and Zosha. And you already brought up the main part where like the main takeaway and the transformation moment or reversion moment almost is when Carol finds out that they say they love him just as much as her, which is hurtful because she thinks she's actually cultivating a genuine relationship here when they're just stringing her along to eventually turn her. But what I love is just in the middle of their conversation, she's like, yeah, something bad's about to happen. Like, I need to lay down.
Yeah.
And she like goes and lays down. But the part to take away from here is that even further proves that Manussos is asking all the right questions, because he definitely didn't know that if you yell at them or do something like that, it sends them all into shock. Otherwise, he probably would have done it earlier in the season, not actually caring about their well-being. But the fact that after two conversations with first Zosha, then the second person, Rick, I think, is who they send, and like he's talking to him, he prepares them too, says like, I'm gonna do this, so and then so he can test out his theory with the frequency, which the frequency payoff might be my favorite thing of the show, but it's also the thing I still kind of understand the least. And that's fine. That's totally fine,
Yeah.
because that is the most like open-ended question that we can take away from the entire season. What is even going on there? Is he expecting that, like, the frequency obviously changed when he was freaking them out and trying to like almost resummon the individuality to that person?
Yeah.
But I don't know why he was taking it as it was working, and I might have just totally misunderstood the cues that I was supposed to be hearing there.
I don't think that he thought it was definitely working to pull the individual out, but I think he confirmed enough that the radio signal means something so that there's now something he can work with. I agree with you. I don't think he fully took it as like this in a vacuum situation proved to me that I could pull the individual back out. But I think
Mhm.
the situation proved to him that when he found the radio signal, he was correct that it was something, and now that it changed when they're freaking out and seizing, that means that this radio signal can be utilized in some form to
Mhm.
fix the world.
Yeah, they're getting the same thing. I mean, we talked about it. We were theorizing that's how they kind of communicate, and whether it is or isn't, the signal obviously was affected when they were all affected. So it's connected. And he was like, all right, curveball. Let's see if I can get into the what he would call the soul of the person, if I can communicate with the actual person through all of this. And there was so much going on here. And for a hot second, my theory that Benusos could kill Zosha, like the stock for that theory was at an all-time high. When
Yeah.
when Carol looked,
Did you sell? Did you sell when it hit the high?
I was like, I was up there. I was more than 50% because they made it such a good like little. They implanted the idea that Menusos could be dangerous. You know, with the machete.
Mhm.
Even this scene, he goes out to the machete or his ambulance, and you see the machete on his bag, but he's just moving it to
Yes.
go to his
Yes.
notebook underneath. Like they do that on purpose. So,
Oh, yeah.
when Carol, she looks out and sees Zosha's car outside of his place. I was like, he easily could be holding her hostage to manipulate Carol. Like, this could be it. I'll be upset. Obviously, that's not how it worked out. But Carol being the jealous significant other, this entire sequence of scenes was so crazy because she just goes in and is like, Zosha, get back to my place. I refuse you to like conversate and see with him again. And even when Zosha's like, it's not in us to lie to him, Carol's like, yeah, to me, not to him. He's a stranger. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know what you guys are talking about. And then the line where Zosha says, you have to understand we love him. We love him the same way that we love you. She just straight up like looks at her and says, no, like you can't love him the
Yeah.
same. It's not the same. He's a stranger. You barely know him. And she kind of goes into and you're my, and she's gonna say like girlfriend, wife, significant other, don't know what she's going to say, but she ends up on chaperone and says mine again. So she is so caught in their trap. As much as Carol's trying to play them, she has fallen so deep that she is using a shotgun to go threaten Manusos to say, I know you're doing research, but stop it. You're affecting the ones that I love right now.
And this is the moment where I actually was like, all right, Carol, I'm starting to get freaking pissed at you,
I
man.
agree.
Because Carol caught this from the very beginning. She's like, Zosha showed up looking like the character from my book because you wanted to manipulate me. She knew that from the very, very beginning. And then she's very cynical throughout the show until she gets put in timeout, and then she gets quote unquote broken because she's so lonely, etc. And I really, really would have liked that scene to actually smack her back into reality because she did react to it, of course, when Zosha says, we love Menusos the same way we love you. That should have just been like, wow, I've been an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
I have been a
Mhm.
freaking idiot. I should not have been acting this way. I need to go back to Menusos and we need to fix the world. But instead, it's good storytelling in the way of how much the loneliness affected Carol, how much the loss of Helen affected Carol, the grief, everything, her falling in love with Zosha. I don't want to say a rebound, but the hive mind probably manipulated in that way too, right? Helen passes away. Here comes Zosha. Then Carol's put in timeout for 40 days. And then now Zosha's back and kisses her. It's pretty darn easy for Carol to fall in love with Zosha at this moment. And she is in love with her. And that's why she's able to get manipulated in such a way. But I was like, Carol, come on. Like, they just proved to you your entire point from the very beginning, from the
Mhm.
pilot. Everything you've ever been thinking is correct. And you're still going to have to do another 10 or 15 minutes of us showing them gallivanting together before their eggs conversation.
That triggered something in me that makes me want to now ask the question to you guys of does this episode and these scenes of her being clearly being manipulated like we're describing, let's flash back to, I forget if it was last episode or 2 episodes ago, when we had that conversation with Zosha in the kitchen and she starts having the flashbacks, and it seems like she's genuinely having memories of her individuality with the mango ice cream and all that stuff. Was that pure manipulation, or was that a initial seed plant that now clearly didn't pay off in this season but will in the next season? So like you could take it in two ways. Like it was truly just hardcore manipulation, like gloves off, they don't care what they'll do to try and trick her, or that's going to come back into play in the future, and for now it's just like a little bit of an Easter egg hint.
I'm going to go ahead and say that I think that we can look at it that way still, but I think that this season finale, as much as they didn't prove with actions of, again, the tracker or something like that, I think they did enough for us to take them as antagonistic and manipulating. They have something that they want to do to Carol. They have their imperative. They're going to change Carol and the rest of them. They're probably fully manipulating Kumba right now as well. That's why they're so tough. That's why they're not like the major villains, but in their minds, they think they're doing it for the greater good, but they're fully manipulating. And I'm starting to take it as every single thing from the very beginning has been a manipulation. I believe fully that the kiss was a manipulation. I think that the conversations about the book was a manipulation. I think that Zosha herself, which we know showing up, is a manipulation. I think that that's the villainous part, even though the hive mind themselves don't believe they're being villainous.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I was leaning more towards it was Zosha getting her individuality back, kind of like what Manusos was trying to do with Rick. But at the end of this episode, after the eggs conversation, Zosha has a line where it's like, "We love you, I love you," and so I was under the assumption that whenever Zosha was using the term "I," that was kind of bringing her individuality back. But now I'm totally on board that it's just
Manipulation.
pure
Yeah, it's
manipulation.
manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That was something I didn't think about until we started talking about it again. But yeah, I'm leaning on the manipulation side of things, but because I like the frequency being part of the ultimate solution rather than it just be force these individuals to remember their past, because I don't see why that would work. Like you would have to,
Right.
it would be such soft sci-fi that you just have to roll with it, rather than what Manusis is doing is strictly hard sci-fi. Like he's trying to give
Right.
us a tangible answer. And I mean, we've talked all the way through that entire thing. I like that plot point a lot, and that's going to clearly be super important for season 2.
One small scene, Zosha wakes up and she asks for water after the whole seizing incident. Um, she's just drinking the water and she starts like coughing. And Carol's like, slow, slow, drink it slow. And I'm
Yeah.
like, Carol, this is obviously showing how much you care for her. But do you really think you know better than the collective 7 billion minds of I need to drink this water slower? It was just like, Carol, just relax. Okay.
She loves her, man. She loves her. She wants to make sure she's okay. And it is crazy because, again, for the millionth time, we talk about the human body being the vessel for the hive mind. They were affected in a way where they actually believe they need to ask for water. Or is asking for water a manipulation tactic too? Because it's literally a
Manipulation.
sympathy thing where
Mm-hmm.
it's, when something bad happens, yeah, I'll take some water, please. And the person who cares about you runs for the water. This is the stuff that's amazing.
I actually just thought of something that I want to run by you guys. So right after this, Zosha's like, "Sorry, Carol, we got to leave." And as she's leaving, she's like, "Oh, where's Manusos?" And she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. We find out he's in the trunk." When they're seizing, they're just completely disconnected from one another, and that's why Manusos is trying to talk to him. Are we to assume that while they're seizing, they don't know anything that's going on? Like, do they know that Manusos was putting this radio in Rick's hands, trying to get him to come back, or was there just a complete blackout while they're seizing? Because I feel like that could definitely be a useful piece of information if they're just disconnected whenever they seize.
My thought process would be that they're disconnected. I don't think we have enough of an answer on that yet, but it's a good point, Paul. Like anything you do while they're disconnected and seizing, I would assume they don't know what you've been doing. Minusos tells them, hey, shit's about to hit the fan. You know, tell everybody, if you're flying a plane, if you're driving a car, please stop the car. I don't know what you're going to do about a plane, but he cares about humanity enough to do that. So we'll give him that point. But also, will he in the future do the same exact thing? And will it be an ongoing experiment where whenever he wants to try to pull out the individuality of someone, he's going to make them start seizing? Really did love how Zosha did say, like Luke was saying, hey, something's about to happen. I'm going to lay down. Because at first it's like, why should she know that? Just like everything else, when they pause, and for those 2 times when they paused, and I'm like, why would they pause? They should be all knowing. They should just be able to communicate. They just explained that they should be able to communicate. I was like, for a very small second, I was pissed. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. Minusos told them ahead of time.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Good for him.
All right, let's fly through the next couple things just to get towards the. I mean, you can't even call it a time skip, but the mini time skip. Just Laxmi calls, freaks out because assumes that whole plot thing was Carol driven, and it technically was Carol adjacent, but it wasn't. That's just going to be a thing. But I would think Laxmi is the next one up to convert, so we might never actually get another scene with her. But then we can skip to after everybody starts leaving Albuquerque, and she lets Minusos out of the trunk, and then that's where you get the line which is the reason for the name of the episode. Minusos is very aware of the whole Zosha thing now and says, what, do you want to save the world, or you want to go get the girl? And like that's where it gets left, and then you skip to she clearly picks the girl for the time being, and she is living her goddamn best life on the beaches, on the slopes, like doing all that. Do we need to cover anything else before we jump into that, the vacation portion of this?
No, I just thought the no answer aspect of Carol when she hears that question, like I was so disappointed in her, but at the same time, I'm like, can I really blame her? Would I do any different in that situation? Like, would I also not choose the girl after 40 days of isolation? So this was the whole season feels like it was like showing us that Carol knows the right thing to do, but she's slowly breaking. And this question was just like, that's how broken I am, that I know that's a situation I'm in, but I just don't care right now. So when they do go on the, vacation, you're like, wow, she's going full Kumba. And
yeah,
did you guys see the book that she was reading, that Carol was reading?
Yeah.
So I've never read it, but I was like, you know what? Little Easter eggs everywhere. Let me just double check and see what's about. So it's called The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. And
yeah, she's a big fantasy writer.
So
right?
Yeah. It seems to be a 1969 science fiction novel. And it's all about a human envoy, Genly AI or whatever, sent to the planet to persuade its people to join an intergalactic federation. Like the inhabitants are ambisexual, changing gender during a monthly period. So it's just like this all extraterrestrial. It fits so well into the theme of the show, obviously. And
nice.
If anybody's read
Love
it
that.
and knows how to contribute more of that book to the show, I love it.
The main series, I think, is Earthsea, if I'm correct. Earthsea is like the what made her, like when I look at like fantasy forums, people recommend that series all the time. I don't know if that's the book or the series, but yeah, definitely know her.
Okay, I love that.
I'm glad you did that, Paul, because books, whenever a character's reading a book in a show, it means something. So I appreciate you looking into that, Paul. And here's the big moment of the episode. It's the conversation towards the end. And we already started to get into it a little bit, but this is the big moment where Carol is majorly betrayed, or she feels majorly betrayed. From the moment she's put in timeout to her reconnection and then major connection emotionally to Zosha, to now finding out what she finds out. Now, again, she literally decided to continue forward with Zosha and the hive mind, even though Zosha told her that they love Minusos the same that they love her. But again, she continued on, and that says a lot about her mindset and her mind space at the time of that episode. And she continues for another It's another like 11 days, right?
It has to be, because she already confirms that the changes happened for the cold opening. So we're on the other side of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So they go on their vacation and they're having this conversation. And Carol seemingly was fine with accepting her fate with the hive mind and with Zosha as long as she got to keep her individuality, which is a defeat for Carol, the Carol we knew from the very beginning of this season. We know how much she's been manipulated throughout this entire season by the hive mind. We see the same exact thing with the character Kusumayo in the beginning of this episode, where they manipulated her in such a way where, yes, she did decide herself from the very beginning she would like to change, but still they manipulated her so much that she felt comfortable enough within her own customs, within her own village to make this decision. And Carol here has decided after everything she's been through that yes, I'm going to be okay with living my life out with Zosha, and I'm in love with Zosha, and as long as I get to be an individual, I guess we're all good.
So yeah, Carol's just talking about how she's afraid that these good feelings in her will go away, but they aren't going away. And Zosha's saying, "Well, it only gets better."
Yes.
And Carol's like, "Better? Like you're not talking about the joining, are you? You said you needed my stem cells. Did that change?" And Zosha's like, "No, that's correct." Carol continues with, "And if I don't expressly give you my consent to jam a needle in my ass, then you can't take them, and I stay me, right?" And Zosha stammers and is like, "That would be correct." So Carol's obviously privy with how this works at this point. She asked them straight up, "There's no other way to get my stem cells, is there?" And when there's no answer from Zosha, she's like, "All right, you would have said no if there wasn't another way. So my eggs, you have them, don't you?" And Zosha's like, "We do." And now we're getting more into the horror of things because, like, as viewers, we can be as trapped as Carol's been. We are so charmed by Zosha and everything going on. It feels like they have such a relationship that we forget they could be doing devious things in the background, like unknowingly working on the stem cells. And even though we theorized on it, it still hits when we do get the confirmation and Zosha straight up
Hmm.
just doesn't answer. You're like, oh my God, we're so not used to that it's jarring to see her look uncomfortable. And that was the beginning of the avalanche of realizations for Carol and the situation she's in.
And like to take it the next step, she does also confirm that 2 to 3 months max is all they need, and it's basically game over for Carol. They'll have the fix. And I guess the question, the meta above table talk question is like, what stops her from saying, "Give me that"? Like, whatever you
Okay.
have, just
Yeah.
give me back. Yeah, you know what I mean?
So I think the point here is that Zosha's explained that their imperative always takes precedence. So if you try to stop us from doing what we're supposed to do, what we're born to do or made to do, we can defy you. So if Carol says, "Give me those stem cells, give me those eggs, stop doing what you're doing," I believe that Zosha could say, "Sorry, we're not going to do that. We have to convert you, and we're going to do no matter what anything we can to convert you."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my
I
only
mean,
thought
that's a
process.
no, that's a good enough answer for now because otherwise it just makes plot hole questions relevant, and I'm okay with them saying that, yeah, like passing on the message and making that permeate through the entire species is really truly rule number one, and then everything
Yeah.
else is after that.
Wonderfully acted by Rhea Seahorn. And again, the joke here is that Zosha, who said it? Luke, hot take. I'm starting to love Zosha. Well, yeah, I
Mhm.
think we still love Zosha, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
she's antagonistic, right? She's becoming the antagonist that we've known, I guess, the hive mind is throughout this season. But this is really where, again, smack Carol right back into reality with this whole conversation. The acting was phenomenal on both sides. You could see Zosha, Paul, you said it with the stammers and the hesitation. You could see kind of like her eyes moving, choosing her words very, very carefully. Carol with the betrayal on her face. Carol literally was in love with Zosha. She was fine with their vacation and them spending time together, even though she took the blind eye to the fact that Zosha told her the truth about Manusos and herself. Carol fully betrayed, and here we go. She decides, I'm done,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I'm going back to the Avengers team, and we're going to fix this.
And that was the best look of the entire episode on her face when she's in that
Yep.
helicopter. Emotions are gone. She's mission focused again. She gets out, and actually, Zosha's acting was incredible in that
Oh yeah.
last final drop off of Carol, because she was genuinely worried, like, oh shit, like, well, we didn't know at that specific second that they were carrying an atom bomb, but like the implications of Carol's done with me, who we convinced her that she was in love with. She's willing to ask for a bomb and then tell me to go away, and now she's going to go with Manusos, who's the most dangerous human on the planet to the hive mind. It's all just going the opposite way that the hive mind calculated. So that is like a hype moment, and that's why I feel like it ended on like a really good final scene. And then, like, her line delivery for like what's in the crate was just so good. Like, he says you win, she says you win, we save the world. Like, that's pretty badass. That got me hyped
It
up for
is.
this
Yeah.
season 2. Yeah.
So let me quickly say that Vince Gilligan came out and said that the ending of season 1 was going to be a little bit different. It was going to end up in the same spot where Carol basically shows up and kind of just like shakes Manuso's hand and says, "Hey, I'm on your team now." And Apple TV came and said, I believe Sony as well. I guess it's dual produced here.
Oops.
And wouldn't it be like crazy cool, however you want to say it, if she has the atom bomb with her, since we talked about that earlier in the season? And Vince Gilligan was like, all right, let's do it. And I think it was necessary because, again, you heard what I said in the intro. I really don't think plot wise, they did enough where you really got me like going for season 2.
What I want to say is that, Paul, you called this out earlier, that like they'll use the humor to de-escalate certain situations and weird moments and everything. And looking back, I actually think that final moment of like it's an atom bomb would have been mind blowing if they didn't mention it in that scene when she's talking to the dude in the hospital. If it only
Yeah.
escalated to what would you give me? If it ended with like you'll give me a tank, and then at the end she's like, yeah, it's an atom bomb, I would have been like, what the F is, like, that
Yeah.
would have been
Yeah.
the craziest sign off ever. So I kind of wish they didn't mention it earlier, because it almost, we were already had our gears turning thinking about the implications of that already, that it's not necessarily as much of a shocking moment as it could have been. But it does also throw a wrench in the fact that like it was also Apple Notes that caused that to happen. So I do wish it was just that was the first mention of an atom bomb the entire time, because that would have been an iconic moment, I think, for the show.
Yeah, definitely agree
And
there. To Luke, what you just said, Jimmy, that reveal makes me worry about, is there an actual use for the atom bomb going forward, or is it a joke?
yeah, so let me tell you, again, I'm not going to spoil anything from Breaking Bad, but there's a major foreshadowing moment that was written into one of the seasons towards the end of the show that ended the season, or it was happening in a certain time where another season, the last season, was about to happen. And Vince Gilligan literally had no idea how they were going to utilize what it was. And he pretty much said the same thing for this. He said,
Yeah.
the atom bomb is there. We'll figure it out. It was notes from Apple TV, but there's not a major plan for it at this moment. But we'll figure it out.
Okay.
I like the idea of it, of Carol's using it as like a last stand. Like, if you come close to me with that, turning virus, then I'll just blow everything up. I mean, that makes sense to me, but I just hope that it's in there for a use, even if it doesn't get used, just using the presence of the bomb as leverage for something. I mean, that would make sense. I just hope there's something to it.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be something.
And just for completion sake, just let's talk about the idea of if it's not an atom bomb, and that was almost like ironic in a way. I don't know if ironic's even the right word. Like, what are the other options? Because I was seeing floating around our Discord like a mini lab, so she can start doing basically the reverse of whatever the hive mind's doing to try and figure it out. But Carol has no background. She even proved that earlier when she was asking if anybody had any type of medical training. So that doesn't feel right. And I think we already crossed off the idea of drop my eggs off there. Like, they probably just wouldn't answer that. So
Right.
it probably is just an atom bomb. And even with the notes, it makes that even more obvious that it doesn't feel like it was like a plant for season 2. But is there
Right.
any random dart throws you just want out there on the airwaves in case it comes to fruition next season? You guys could take credit.
I was on the train that it was actually a mini laboratory that
Okay.
Carol was bringing for Manusos, not necessarily like her specialty,
Okay, that's better.
because
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
as we saw, Manusos he's studying, he's reading all these textbooks about electricity and magnetism, and I don't know if you guys read any of those titles, but one of them was, Faraday, Maxwell, and electromagnetic fields. And I've been
Mm.
talking about that Faraday box from the get go, and if they
Yeah.
put somebody in one, will they be disconnected from it? There's so much I don't know about electricity and magnetism, so I don't know the details, but it just felt like they could be hinting towards a lot of the things here. And even the one book is like crystallography, which I looked that up too. And it was, more about just atoms and their, structure and, how they're usually crystalline. But then they even talked about how it can go into, the structure of DNA as well. So I'm like, okay, are they really getting in? Are they really just giving us some answers here? Or are they just throwing a bunch of stuff at us? So interesting.
The Faraday call out is incredible. I feel like there's no way that they don't do that. Like they need to just kidnap one of them, throw him into that, and start messing with it. But you said magnetism, Paul. Do you know who the master of magnetism is?
Oh, oh my god, why can't I think of, Magneto?
There you
Yeah.
go. They should ask him, man. I'm sure he could help figure this shit out.
Yeah, let's ask the master of magnetism. Now, the question is, which one are we gonna ask, dude? Which Fox universe one are we gonna ask?
I'm sure they're
So
both in there, right? They're both in the hive mind somewhere.
yeah, they could be. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I think I've learned throughout this entire season that you can pretty much take Vince Gilligan. Vince Gilligan as literally as possible. He doesn't seem like he's messing with anybody, and if he says it's an atom bomb, I'm going to take it that it's an atom bomb. But I thought originally before she said it that it was going to be like a peace offering, which would have been like materials lab, something
Mm.
he could use for his studies or his experiments. So I'm definitely on those lines with everybody with their theorizing, but now I think it was an atom bomb. So we'll see
Yeah.
what happens. Now, we have quickly before we end the episode, I have a couple of questions for you guys. The first question will be, let's talk about the IMDb scores here. Episode 1 was a 9.0, episode 2 was an 8.4, episode 3 7.8, episode 4 8.1, episode 5 7.9, episode 6 7.9, episode 7 7.5, episode 8 7.7, and episode 9 8.5.
Mhm.
Where do you see this as a full season? What are your thoughts on the actual rating of the season?
So let's just do this while we're here. Let's give our out of 10 ranking here to the
Yeah,
10th of a
yeah.
decimal just to see where we land. I can go first because I did think about this a lot and I actually raised it a tiny bit as we were talking. So that's always a good sign. Like the more you talk about and engage with the show, if it gets better for you, that's a good show. But with that being said, I'm probably lower than you guys, but maybe not by as much as you think. I landed on a 7.0 flat out of 10, which in today's culture, when you're looking at like TV shows, like 7.0 doesn't actually mean garbage. Like some people imply, like a 6 or a 7 is like terrible TV show. Like no, like 5 is an average TV show, 7's above average. It's just not gonna land on my top 20 right now, or it's not projected to be a top 20 show of all time for me. So I'm right around 7, so I'm a little bit lower than IMDb. But it seems, and it definitely seems I'm lower than our own Discord. But for the general sentiment about how the show's been received, like people are all over the place. So I don't think there's going to be a consistent answer here. So I feel less bad about what I'm considering probably lower than what most people that love the show will appreciate. But I landed at 7.0.
Yeah, dude, if it was after the first 2 episodes you asked me, I'm like 9 point.
Nine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
9.5.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking about it and everything.
Mhm.
There was just so many things going through my head. As the season goes on, our expectations do kinda settle, and I kinda hovered around 8, like 8.25. I know you said 10th decimal place, but I'll go to the 100th just in case. But it
Would
really
you round up or round down, dude?
probably down. I'd probably round down to an 8.
8.2.
Yeah.
8.2. Okay.
But,
Yeah.
it's the thing is, I feel like this show can have 10 out of 10 moments, but it just getting there sometimes can be a struggle for the viewers, which I'm not gonna say I struggled watching these episodes because I did enjoy them and I was glued to the stream, but at after some episodes, I'm like, "What's the takeaway here?" Which, to Luke's point, if a show can make you talk and discuss with what like we're doing, it's a good show.
Paul, I think I'm right with you, man. Just to be different, I'll round up to 8.3. I think I was the highest on it from all of us. Obviously, I'm maybe a little bit biased on Vince Gilligan, but I will say I've seen a lot of people talk about the fact that when this show comes back, they'll wait and binge season 2. And I will say this show probably comes off way, way better as a binge.
Yeah.
Now, as a podcaster, I don't believe in the binge as much anymore, even though our network is called Binge Town TV and we have a Binge Empire podcast besides the core, because we love talking about it and having time to talk about the shows in between. But this show is, for the thousandth time, character driven, not plot driven. My opinion would be that plot driven shows have more of a benefit of the week to week, because you have that time to talk and theorize and think about what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always about what's going to happen next with the show. So that's where the difference is. And again, I will also say for the millionth time, I didn't have a chance to watch Breaking Bad season 1 week to week. I don't think I started watching Breaking Bad live until season 3 or 4. I believe season 3. So I was able to binge season 1 and 2. And for anyone who remembers Breaking Bad, season 1 was only 7 episodes. And I firmly remember, as a viewer, saying that I'm so happy I can go right to season 2. And I remember saying that I believed season 1 was part 1 of like a first half of a first season.
Mm-hmm.
And even Vince Gilligan said that that's kind of how it was written also. So I see the potential here, and I see where this is the moment where Avengers Assemble, things can start exploding. And I loved what we got in this season. But there are people that said, plot-wise, this could have been like 4 or 5 episodes. And I'm
Oh
not
yeah.
disagreeing with that at all. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying I wish it was 4 or 5 episodes again, because I think that there's a lot of beauty in what we saw otherwise with the characters. But I'm just saying. But either way, 8.3, 8.2, and 7.0. I think there's no surprises there. I think we're not having a situation where, Kathleen, we're calling you out. We're covering certain Carnival Row and From, and Kathleen's having a blast talking to us, and all of a sudden she's like, show sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Kathleen, we love you. Check out Kathleen on the Binge Empire podcast. She'll be back on the core podcast covering Your Friends and Neighbors with me in a couple months. But either way, last question for you guys. I know we're going a little long today. I think we know the answer based on your reaction, Luke. Paul, it might be a little bit of an unknown answer, and we'll find out. But season 1 of Severance, season 1 of Pluribus. What do you do go, Luke?
Oh my God, not even close to me. That's like comparing Curse to Game of Thrones. Like that's just not the same ballpark.
You actually do that. You would say that. You actually believe that.
I think Severance season 1 is one of the best sci-fi seasons of all time. And while Pluribus had one of the best pilots, yeah, like this is not like right now. I will wait until season 2 comes out and we can see the material. I'm not like pushing this on my dad and some of my friends that aren't like hardcore TV fans yet. Like there needs to be more to chew on. I just don't think it's not Severance. Severance is that's like the tippy top of quality versus this is still quality. It's not that level.
Yeah, it's funny. They're so similar yet so different in so many ways.
Yeah.
I guess I would lean more towards Severance. I think while the show itself posed so many questions, that at least gave you a little bit of information. And that's so like annoying because Pluribus, they gave us all the information we needed. Episode 1, David Staffler, right, baby?
Yeah.
Like, so it's so weird. Like the show is so different. I don't really know how to feel about it. So I'm gonna say Severance, not by as much as Luke said, but I'm
That was jarring, Luke. Curse to Game of Thrones, man.
yeah.
I couldn't think of a fantasy show that universally sucks, so I just settled with Curse, which might be too offensive, but I stand by the fact. Like, if I were to like tier out TV sci-fi shows of season 1s, like Severance is 2 tiers above.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say in Severance, of course, as well. What I will say is that Severance to me was that mystery box show with the perfect blend of plot driven and character driven. I think that Vince Gilligan does character driven better than Severance. I agree. I just think Severance is ahead of it.
This show broke the record for the most viewed Apple TV show ever, and I just truly don't think it deserves that. Like Severance definitely deserves to be watched over this, in my opinion. I guess is a easier way to view it, and I'm actually surprised that it did break that record. I don't know how much of that is domestic versus international. I don't know if that even matters, to be honest, but it was a very shocking fact for them to start marketing it as the most watched Apple TV show of all time.
Yeah, I mean Vince Gilligan's got that power when you literally
Yeah.
say that he can create two of the best shows of all time. You're ready for the third show that he's going to bring out, you know. So we have our opinions, we have our different ends of the spectrum. I think we all agreed though Severance, the core podcast of course covers Severance. So if you want to listen to us cover it, that was huge for our Discord as well. But guys, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of differing opinions here. There's going to be a lot of questions, answers, etc. Hit us up on Discord. Hit us up on the Spotify comments. Hit us up in the YouTube comments. We'll answer every single one of you. BingeTownTV.com/Discord. Otherwise, guys, this is it for now. It could be 2 years. It could be 3 years. We know the deal with Severance. It takes a long time. Vince Gilligan said it's going to be a while. So we might be putting this one on ice for a little bit, but we had a blast doing it. We're glad. We're happy everyone here listened to us, joined in on the fun. Thank you so much for listening to this coverage. Next up, we have Idris Elba in Hijack Season 2. That'll be out in about 2 weeks. And then we have the next season of Shrinking. That's a better way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be at the very end of January. So we have a lot of good stuff coming on the core podcast. Now that the holidays are done, I'll be ramping back up on the news episodes. I have a lot of news to talk to you guys about. So that'll be weekly as well. But that's it, guys. Once again, we are the core podcast covering all things Apple TV. And thank you so much for listening.